Welcome to Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast with Robert Hyder. This is a no-fluff podcast where we dig deep into the journey of scaling your real estate investing and wholesaling business and discuss how to break into commercial real estate investing. Robert Hyder here with Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast. For those who don't know me, I'll go through my journey a little bit here. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, a lower middle class family, first member of my family to traditionally go to college. Out of college, I got into commercial real estate finance. It worked out really well. I was one of the youngest vice presidents of commercial real estate lending in St. Louis at the age of 25. During my time, I underwrote over $1 billion in commercial real estate deals. And then transitioned into full-time entrepreneurial real estate investing in 2013. When I got into real estate investing personally, I focused more on real estate rehabs, did some rentals and wholesales as I was trying to learn the wholesaling game. I quickly realized that the wholesaling side of the business was more scalable, focused on that heavy, and over the 6 years had exponential growth. In 2019, we will have purchased over 200 houses for wholesale, as well as running a real estate brokerage that'll do 60 million plus in transactions. We started and have since sold a residential property management company, and we've made a big transition into commercial real estate lending. Commercial real estate deals. We made a big transition into commercial real estate deals. We own and manage over 110,000 square feet of commercial space, as well as 60 plus residential doors. And the reason I go through all this for you guys is to get into the mission of this podcast, the real reason that I'm here. This is for next level thinkers. We're gonna be talking about the newest ideas, the most innovative stuff. We're gonna be talking about the 1% and 2% difference, the it factor, the edge, the stuff that really makes some investors great while other investors fail. We're gonna be digging deep into work-life balance, mindset. We're going to be having interviews with some of the top folks in the industry, both in the residential and commercial real estate investing sectors, as well as high-level finance guys, maybe even tech guys that have scaled big businesses. If you want to be the best investor that you can be, and you want to get opened up to folks that are doing huge things, how they think, how they make decisions, how they process data, you're in the right spot. Holy hell. Sean Terry's interview here is amazing. It's honestly so much content. We went on for so long that I'm going to have to break it up into 2 episodes so that it's not just crazy information overload. So, guys, there's going to be episode 1 and episode 2 are both going to be Sean. We're breaking the interview up into 2 so that it's not just overwhelming. But here we go with episode 1. Ali, we ready? All right. Welcome to Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast. Very, very excited to be here. We've got Sean Terry, the one and only, on for our very first. What up? Thanks for coming on, Sean.
I'm excited, man. First ever podcast. I know. I was in Rosemary Beach, and you were coming 2 weeks later, and you called me up, and you're like, "How do you think I should do this whole podcast thing?" And guess what? Now we're here.
Absolutely. You know, many, many months in the making, but I'm so stoked. I'm so excited to have you as the first guest, given that, I think it was at one of the events in February, you're like, you need to talk about this. You're doing something unique and just get out there and do it. And then, talked in Rosemary Beach to get some of the steps. And here we are, baby. I'm ready.
I remember years and years and years ago, probably like 3 or 4 years ago, I interviewed you and John on my podcast and did that. Oh, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've been following you for a while. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I've ever told you this. I may have, but back in like 2012, maybe 11, I started listening to you. And in 2012, late 2012, I made the decision. I was like, you know what? If all of these folks can do it, I can do it. And I quit my job having never wholesaled a house. Just like,
right.
Okay, I can do it. Let's go.
That's
yeah, it's been a wild ride in the making, but it worked. So
yeah. It's weird because when you put yourself in a have-to situation, it's amazing how things actually come out. It's scary, it's difficult. You step into it, but if you put yourself in a have to, you don't have a choice. You've got to. Now, when you're negotiating with a seller and they go, "Well, I want to think about it," you're sticking and staying in that conversation. What do you want to think about, right? You're going in it deep, right?
That's right. I mean, there's no other option. You're there. You got to
You're
go.
there. You got to make it
Phone
happen.
ring and you got to get out there. 100%. Well, cool. Well, I think probably almost everyone knows about your journey, but if you wouldn't mind, just do just a little 1-minute brief overview, and then we're going to dig into like really what's changed over the last 18 months and some of the really, really cool ways that you've been scaling, and then some of the exciting commercial stuff you've been going into, because that's really what we're going to be digging into heavy.
Cool. Well, I don't do anything in 1 minute. It's like, yeah, I just came off an event this past weekend. We had 400 people there, right? And I'm sitting there, and their biggest thing was, how do we keep Sean on schedule, right? They got a big clock down there that's ticking. They had to shave off time and stuff to make it. So anyways, back in 2003, I got my first check, $11,008. That kind of put me in it from the doubt stage to the belief stage. That year, I went out and I did a handful of deals. I basically discovered marketing, how that kind of worked into the business. In 2000, I'm getting a real brief story. So in 2004 to early 2005, built a property portfolio of about 120 properties, $36 million worth, residential properties, primarily through pre-foreclosures, negotiating with the seller to leave their existing debt in place, reinstating the loan, giving the seller a couple, $2,000-$3,000 to move out. We went in and cleaned up and renovated the property and put a tenant in. So that's how we essentially built a huge portfolio very fast in 2004, 2005. We were approached by a group out of California. Now remember, 2005, the market was on fire.
Oh yeah.
Inventory is when it comes to wholesaling houses or even real estate, is the major indicator of pricing and how the market is. So 2005, there was about 5,000 units on the market. We had a group out of California that was looking to buy into Arizona. We happen to have obviously 120 houses. So they started buying tranches of houses from us in 10, 15, 20, 25 increment blocks. We ended up selling the entire, all of our inventory from like early May to November. Made millions and millions of dollars from selling that literally at 110% of value. We got some of the properties at 40, 50, 60 cents on the dollar, sold at 110%. It was crazy. So then I had a friend of mine, actually my daughter danced with a guy who he was a civil engineer. And he's like, hey, we should get into land acquisition and entitlement and sell them to builders. Now, this was kind of really before I've never participated or understood the real estate market cycles and how they affect what sectors of the market and what happens in the cycle. And obviously we know in 2008, the market crashed. So this was, this was like late 2005, early 2006, 7. So we didn't really have, we knew the market was slowing, but it wasn't crashed yet, right? So we ended up buying roughly $30 million worth of land, from 10-acre lots to 134-acre properties, and we brought them through the entitlement phase. So we did general plan amendments on them. We did zoning, where we zoned them from 1-acre lots to 6 acres per acre, 6 units per acre. And then we went through the whole process. So we had platted, engineered lots to the tune of 560 lots.
Holy cow.
And as the market crashed, now it's okay if you have no debt service on the property, because you can just wait it out. Interestingly enough, these properties still haven't come back to the actual real value. Just to give you an idea. Anyways, so what happened at the time, we were paying roughly about $100,000 a month in interest cost on all these different properties. And I came to the point in 2008 when the market crashed, TARP happened, market's down 700 points, where I found myself in a situation where I was illiquid. And honestly, what happened was I got too big for my britches. I was in the wrong sector. I was hobnobbing with the vice mayor and I was doing fundraisers for all these, political figures to get our zoning through in certain districts and stuff like that. So I got too big for my britches. I got away from my core values, and what I was doing was actually wholesaling and flipping houses. So found myself at Liquid in a really tough position in 2008, and I was depressed. I'd read the paper every single day. Is it ever going to come back? I was like, is it coming back, right? And we negotiated with the banks. Luckily, we had no personal guarantees on the property. It was like a private money lender,
Sure.
higher interest. It was asset related versus instead of
asset-based lending. Yeah.
So we basically gave the properties back. We gave these properties, lost millions of dollars in the process, and found myself in early 2009. Found myself literally at ground zero, right? All the money I made was gone. My ego was crushed. And I was completely, in a humbled situation. Phoenix at the time, the market got pummeled. Home builders were being out of business. Huge home builders were gone. I mean, there was like vacant properties everywhere. The largest hard money lender in town dressed up in a tux and killed himself, right? It was a bloodbath during that time. So I found myself where I'm literally going, okay, I got to get back to the basics, right? I got to get back to what got me here. So I sat down, I said, okay, if I'm going to do this over again, how do I want to do it? And at the time, I was a solopreneur, so I was doing everything myself. I was, doing all the marketing, answering all the calls, meeting all the sellers, going on the appointments, selling all the properties, transaction coordination, doing the whole deal. I was doing the whole deal. I was working essentially 7 days a week. I loved what I was doing, but I was doing everything. So if I'm going to build this thing again, how would I build it? And I started looking and trying to read business books, and I tripped across, I know exactly what year it was, but I tripped across Traction by Gino Winkman, which is, in my opinion, one of the best business books. It's very simplistic. It's easy to follow. He actually gives you a test at the beginning of the book, and I failed miserably because I was doing everything wrong. I had zero business sense. I mean, I went from high school to the Marine Corps, and from the Marine Corps to basically bartending and network marketing, right? Of all things, then in real estate. So I had no business sense, never ran a business or anything like that, never really worked in a business atmosphere. So then I read this book. It really put an actual vision of what a business could look like. So I started from that point, and I actually started, like it talks about, core values and a vision and and your goals, and then a scorecard. And then, I started building the organizational chart of what a wholesaling operation would look like. And from that point, I started following that Traction model and built a team of people to where I could run my entire business now from a Monday morning meeting. And everybody has a strategic position, from lead managers to acquisition to disposition to marketing to CFOs and stuff like that. So I have all these different positions that handle 99.9% of all the daily tasks that it takes this house flipping plant, right, from start to finish to basically pump out properties. And now I just get to manage it from Monday morning meeting. That frees up the time to do commercial, to build passive income, to invest in large apartment complexes, do real estate syndication, raise capital, and do stuff like that. So that's my maybe 10-minute dissertation.
Hey, you 10x everything, 1 minute story, 10.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
No, that's great. I mean, the coolest thing is, so many folks have some kind of story like that, right? And it's really interesting because when I was in banking, I was in banking during all of this. So I remember it thoroughly, and it's really changed the way I think now. And I remember in 2008, they were talking, and the regulators were saying, hey, get it clean by 2013. Like, they were talking about it being a 5-year rollout
window,
and,
right?
Yeah, that's how deep the creator was. And it was just unbelievable. And then for folks like in 2008, 2009, looking through the paper saying, hey, when do we get out of this? When's this thing going to roll out? because typically the recessions in the past have been relatively short. This
Yeah,
one was
exactly.
just so much worse.
You just hit down like this, go like this, and then just start going back up, right? But if we went down, we went sideways. That's why it's
Hmm.
a hockey stick correction, right? It went down
Yeah.
sideways so long, and then we started going up. But that sideways
Yeah.
was brutal for guys like us, right? It was brutal. It's like, is it ever gonna get out?
Yeah, rebound. And the coolest thing though is to see, like, you were successful, you made millions of dollars, things were looking super, just looking great, everything was up, and then to lose everything, hit rock bottom, and then keep your cool. I mean, I'm sure there was a few awful years, but to keep your cool and be able to rebound, because a lot of folks can't. They just kind of lose their mind, and
Well, yeah,
they never come back.
right.
And or they come back, but at a very low level, because they don't want to rock the boat. Like, hey, I'm not going to do that again.
Right. Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah. Fear. And believe me, and honestly, I mean, just to be straight up, I mean, I've literally in the past 2 years now have started diving into the commercial side of it. And on it, I've had this lingering fear of what happened and the pain I had to go through previous that I really wanted to make sure is it, I dive into this, it has to be done right. Meaning I looked at all the sectors that did make it through the crash. I looked at the reasons why they blew up. Even multifamily. I said, why did some people move up? Well, they had short-term debt and they had to refinance during a crash. Well, guess what? Banking can't really do that. A lot of them had, high leverage, meaning their cash flows went down. So
yeah,
what I
absolutely.
try to do is now I want to, pick markets where there's low cap rate swings. So
Yep.
it's not like Phoenix where the cap rates go up and down,
Hmm.
but and also pick a sector like student housing, which it was incredibly stable during the crash. Put low leverage on the properties and put long-term debt, right? So if
Yeah.
I could do that, right, that will essentially, now there's not going to be these massive deals where I can buy a 200 unit vacant apartment complex, renovate it, sell it, make a fortune.
Sure.
But I'm at the time in my life right now where I'm like more risk adverse, and I want to be, especially if I'm going to have investors invest in this, I want to have the best, have a property that's not going to, potentially put their money or my money at risk.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, well, and that's just it, right? To go from that and then have, going from the bottom, come
Yep.
back, build the business back up, crush it, have a fantastic kind of coaching platform, and then say, okay, well, now I'm going to jump back in and then be able to use what you've learned, being down in the crups, down in the bottom, just, digging around, and use all of that you've learned and try and put it back to work is super impressive.
Yeah. Well,
You
I
know?
appreciate it. It's not easy.
Well, and we were in Dominican,
Yeah.
when was it, February, January? I don't know,
Yeah.
somewhere around then. And we were kind of talking through that, and I was picking your brain because, something I think about all the time, because, we've been kind of following that model, and we have a good size wholesaling business, residential investing business, but my passion's always been on the commercial side. So
Yeah.
we've been scaling up to that. But at the same point, the market, everyone's talking about the market, and it's like, okay, well, how do you hedge? What's the next recession going to look like? What is it going to be, a minor correction? All these different things. And it's, what are you doing to hedge, and how do you have the confidence to move forward and make these decisions? And then how do you not look back and remember those times? So it's just, kind of training yourself and having the mental, strength to kind of push forward, even though there's some uncertainty to it.
Yeah,
And
and I think if you can learn historically what asset classes performed, right, and what debt structures didn't perform, and what cash flow properties didn't perform, and that's great data, right? That we can look at what markets got pummeled,
sure.
like Vegas, Phoenix, parts of California, Florida, right? Those markets got pummeled. So, why would I want to turn around and buy a property in Vegas that has high leverage with a short-term debt window? Right? It's
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
when I mean, even if it's a smoking deal, why? I mean, that's a high risk venture. So, and I know there's risk to reward in real estate and stuff, but the bottom line is we can take from the past, learn from it, and then we can go forward and we can make better decisions. And just like in our wholesaling business, from the military, we learned what's called an after action report. So I tell my sales guys, I'm like, listen, after every sales call or sales appointment or whatever, do an after action report. Make sure, okay, what was the mission? What'd you do great? What'd you suck at? How can you get better, right? So if you do that every single time after every call, then now instead of looking at a failure, you're looking at what can I do to get better?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're building on past, I guess, challenges and turning them into future successes.
Absolutely. No, that's huge. There's something really, really great to be said about that. So you've been scaling into commercial real estate investing. How many units are you up to now on the apartment side?
Yeah, so we're currently in escrow on a 356 unit. We're closed in about 2 weeks, and that will put me at 760 student housing units on 3 different buildings across the country.
Holy hell, that's impressive. And how long ago did you start investing in the multifamily sector?
About 2 years. About
Okay.
2 years ago. Yeah. So we know there's essentially a recession coming. So I knew there was a recession coming at some point, but we don't know. It could be 2024, 25, whenever it is. So, you know, I believe we want to start establishing a relationships with capital now,
Mm-hmm.
because when the market does correct, the same buildings that we're buying at 80,000 a unit, we can start buying them now at 30, 40, $50,000 a unit and have significant amount more cash flow when the market does correct in the future. So, I think the highest evolution of a real estate investor is the ability to raise capital and the ability to buy larger properties, right? That can, I mean, look at Grant Cardone, right? Grant
Yeah.
Cardone has, started multiple Reg A's, was able to raise hundreds of millions of dollars, or $100 million, whatever, and invest them into larger apartment complex, Class A apartments. And that's, I believe, is the highest evolution of a real estate investor. You have the ability and access to capital. There's literally not one opportunity you can't pounce on. So if like this building we're buying right now, it's a strategically located. It's the only student housing property. It's right outside of Oklahoma City, but across from a university. It's built in 2009. The current owners haven't kept up the maintenance on it. So there's about 655,000 in deferred maintenance we're going to do on CapEx, to clean it up. But it's a great property, and it's managed by a bunch of college kids, right? So there's not professional management in there.
Right.
And it's still 95, 96% occupied. We can bring it up to 100% occupancy. We can raise those rents, which haven't been raised in, a handful of years, and be able to make that incredibly optimal, when it comes to having a great cash flow property. We're buying it for about just over 10 million, like 10.6 million.
Okay.
Our projected exit on this property is about 18 million once we stabilize cash flow on a conservative cap rate exit in 5 years.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that one's in Oklahoma City, you say?
Yeah, and I plan not to exit. I don't want to exit the properties. I want to exit the investors out of the properties, refinance it, and hang on to it for long term. You got a great asset like that. Why not keep it in the family forever?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's very similar to our model. We're not in multifamily too terribly much just yet, but absolutely will be. But that's just it. We're looking. We always want to look at what the exit looks like, but in reality, I'm in the real estate market. We're buying for long-term wealth,
forever, right?
Income. Yeah, absolutely. And especially for high quality assets. There certainly will be some that we'll buy that will sell off at some point, but it's going to go probably back into another asset,
Yeah. I mean, now you're going to 1031, you got to go find another asset to put it in. Right. So if you got a great asset, just keep the asset.
100%. Well, so cool. So, I think that probably leads into it. Is that the kind of business sector or the venture that gets you the most excited, that you're really kind of passionate about growing right now?
Yeah, a couple different things. I think, I have been in my wholesaling business essentially stuck in the mud for a long time, because my methodology and belief for years is my edge in the business is my ability to build rapport, read personality types, and close deals, and then teach that to a sales team that can do the same. So for years, I've done tons of business where we've done only in Phoenix, right? Where we make a ton of appointments, we make a lot of offers, we get in front of sellers, and we create that edge through building rapport, creative problem solving, and then being able to close a deal. So, so recently, probably in the last, 6 to 8 months, I can say that I've transitioned that thinking to be more national and close over the phone, right? So we have a quasi model. So we close locally, the same type of process, but now we have sales, part of our sales teams right now, and we're building more sales. I'm actually renovating my office to bring on more salespeople to essentially close in other markets, like we're in Vegas, we're in other markets across the country that we can do deals and close over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So in teaching that, so I think, especially Phoenix is a highly competitive market. Cost per lead is incredibly high, even though our average deal size is about $24,000 on an average deal size, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But to bring it to scale, I mean, we're literally, we're mailing 100,000 units a month. We're RVMing, 400,000 people a month. We're cold calling. We're texting, not mass texting, but individual texting.
Sure.
We're doing that. And the only other thing we could do essentially is go on TV. And then we'll pretty much be in, we got Google AdWords going, and we're dropping 30, 40,000 a month. So, I mean, we do a lot of marketing in Phoenix, but for us to grow, to get to a higher level, we've got to open up the market. We have to open up the country and be able to do that. So, like I said, I've been stuck in the mud because that's been my cutting edge. So recently, I'm like, okay, you got to go you got to do virtual. And there's a lot of other people doing it in the marketplace. They're doing phenomenally well. And so I totally respect that. So.
Yeah, I love that. We've been digging into that too. And it's really, really interesting. Obviously the scalability, that's huge. You can take the best sales staff that you have and apply them to other areas where you don't have as much competition. You don't have, the iBuyers. You don't have all of these other kind of headwinds slowing you down.
Correct.
And just jump, with a couple more steps, right?
Yeah, and it's easy to enter a market too, because you can do the research. You can find the high cash transaction areas. When you have systems like REI Automator or List Source, you know what's going on in a market, how many transactions are happening annually. You can see that. You even can pull the list and figure out exactly what properties are selling and for what and who's buying them. So you have all that information. And if you have that information, that's great intel to enter a market where you can enter with AdWords, you can enter with some direct mail, and you can enter with RVM, and you can start getting some leads coming in and start closing over the phone. Once you know how to close over the phone, then you can pretty much, then there's no stop. It becomes how fast can you add sales guys, right? That becomes the process of how fast you can do it, and having a phone system that can handle, to work virtually in different markets across the country. Having a phone, and we use Dialpad. Dialpad's phenomenal. I highly recommend checking it out. So
okay.
It's a voice over IP. And it's great. And it's something you can onboard quickly. So, the question is, how fast can you go from 5 reps to 10, 10 reps to 15, 15 reps to 20, and on a fast scale. So you've got training you've got to do to get them on the board. You've got what type of pay structure to bring them on, and stuff like that. So that's what we're kind of working through. We have an awesome game plan, but I want to add 10 in the next 90 days, 10 more to our team right now, and see where that takes us.
Wow, that's fantastic. What adding 10 guys, that's something. What do you see the biggest hurdle being, or what has the biggest hurdle been?
I think the biggest hurdle is because we put people through the ringer, right? So not only do they have to submit a video to us, they've got to be here. I want them local. I don't want them anywhere else. So if they're across the country, they have to come here. Number one. Number two is then we put them through a significant set of questions, like probably, I think there's like 65 different questions they have to answer, right? So a lot of people don't even go through the questions to even answer the stupid questions, right? So about 65 different questions to answer. Then we have them read Be Obsessed or Be Average, right, to be able to do that. And then they're going to come in and they're essentially going to work for a minimal base and a very minimal, basically commission, like $100. So, and they have a progression. So they go 1 to 5 deals, and then they go from 6 to 10, then they go from 11 to 15. And they're going to be working directly with a senior acquisition where all that commission rolls up to the senior acquisition that's going to train them. And once they get to 15 deals, then they can evolve or get promoted to a senior acquisition. But so they're going to be junior until they do those 15. So it's getting someone through that 15 and how fast they can do it is the key.
Yeah, so you're making them really, really earn it. Like you've got to come in, work for nothing, just power through. And then after you hit a certain level, it's like, okay, now you can scale up. Now you can be a true, non-junior member of the team and get out there and actually make some money.
Yeah, and then now they're going to be able to teach someone else. They're going to start being able to train someone else to be able to do that. So and if they're going to work through that too, and it gives incentive for the senior to basically train a junior acquisition, given they those commissions are going to roll up. But to be able to do that, I think it's going to push them to the fact, and it'll prove, because I mean, a senior acquisition that's a $200,000 a year job.
Sure.
Now, you've been out in the marketplace in a regular job, a $200,000 a year job. The amount of responsibility and what a person has to do to earn $200,000 in the normal, work environment marketplace is significant. It takes years and years and years to work. And I can get a guy that can come in, do 15 deals and graduate to a position, make 200 grand. Right. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's insane. The opportunity is huge.
Well, and we talk about it all the time in our office, and I think we probably talked about it with you, with John, where, at some point there's just so many high numbers that come through the office, you almost kind of devalue the dollar, like lost that. You almost, it's like, okay, well, yeah, we can pay this guy 200 grand. And you kind of forget that, someone making $200,000 is a really, really difficult thing to do in normal world. There's not a whole lot of jobs out there that they're just saying, oh yeah, come on in, you can make $200,000. That's
You're talking about the top, 3 to 5% of people in the entire country.
Oh yeah.
Hired on, the amount of stress and the amount of hours they got to work. They got to work weekends. They're flying all across the entire country. Their performance levels are incredibly high. So it's like now with this, and we're giving them essentially handing them a position. They're going to have to go through hell first, in my opinion.
Sure.
Get there. And 15 deals is really not hell. I mean, they're still going to make good money. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the training and all the process you guys have. Yeah, you're there. Well, that's fantastic. So that being said, you hit on this a little bit, but like, what do you think really separates you from all of the other folks out there, all the competitors, not even just in your market, but like that 1 or 2% difference that really makes you great and allows you to, to really succeed when others don't? Because I mean, like you mentioned before, and there's probably not a whole lot that you're doing different in the marketing cycle. You're not probably doing a whole lot that's different. I mean, you tell everyone what you do on the marketing side, you tell everyone what you do on the sales side, but there's probably some little tweak or something little that you do on a day-to-day basis that makes you that much better than everybody else. Have you honed in to figure out?
And that's actually a really, really good question. And I can just totally tell that this podcast, for everybody listening right now, you definitely want to hit the subscribe button because you're going to get some incredible content. Robert's probably one of the smartest people I know in the industry when it comes to commercial, finance structure, putting deals together and stuff like that. So whatever you're doing right now, definitely hit the subscribe button because you're going to want to do it because the people that he knows, some of the people you're going to get on your show and here in the future are going to crush it. So the edge. So the edge, what is the edge, right? What's the edge? And it's interesting because it's going to be completely different than probably what most people suspect as a tactic or a thing or whatever. But for me, I read the book called The Go-Giver years ago, right? Before I started my podcast, right? The Go-Giver.
Yeah.
And the Go-Giver talks about the basically one of the principles to your compensation is the more, and it's in Think and Grow Rich talks about it, Napoleon Hill, the more people you help achieve a certain level of income and success, the more success you're going to have. So I kind of really embrace that. So what's my edge is I teach, right? I teach. I have been in the education space. I started my podcast in 2010 inside my car, just like you're doing your first podcast like this. I started the education space. And it is absolutely 1000% true. If you pour it out there, you put the best information out there, you really pour into people and you sincerely care about how people become successful, and you put out the best of the best content you possibly can, then it's a law of karma thing. It's a karmic thing. It's a universal thing. It comes back to you tenfold, and it has in ways that's completely unexplainable. Meaning, we can be in Phoenix, the most competitive market across the country, and we get deals that line up, we get opportunities that line up, we get properties that line up, like this, this property we're closing on in Oklahoma. That deal just came in on our plate perfectly, and everything's coming together perfectly for it when it comes to raising capital for it. So things just happen to work out better. And if people initially think that, well, I don't want to put out all the good information because now I'm going to create competition. If you have your mindset, right, then good luck, right? My edge essentially is giving the highest level education I possibly can. And it's amazing how more business, more opportunities, more things come my way than any time I've ever had in history. It's amazing. And great people, great opportunities, great deals all come. And I've never had to, when I started doing that, never had to, really struggle when it comes to, now there's been challenges and things come through. It's just part of life and business, but everything works out, seemed to work out in my benefit for some reason. So if you put out that much good and you help that many people, we just did an event for 400 people here in Phoenix, and we changed lives. I know for a fact that we changed lives. If someone can come to you and say, listen, you changed my life. Thank you so much. You made a massive impact. Jonathan, your partner, I met him the first time. I had him come speak this weekend. I mean, I met him at an event we did in Atlanta 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
His whole life has completely changed. I mean, he's like, because as he's moving, he lives in a different neighborhood than he does. He's making more money than he makes more money in a month than he used to make an entire year. His his net worth has completely changed. And I'm not saying I had all the, I'm not the only person, but I'm saying is I had a little bit to do with making that impact. I think that's huge. If you do that for a ton of people, right? We have on our podcast, we broke over 12 million listeners in 196 different countries, right? On Instagram and this and that, putting out incredible content. You'll never have a problem with abundance.
Yeah. The abundance mentality. And one of my favorite quotes is, the harder I work, the luckier I get, and you're out there just hammering it. You're working hard, teaching people to be better, giving them, the skills and the mindset. Obviously you made a huge impact on Jonathan's life. You made a huge impact on my life. Jonathan and I actually both quit our jobs in the exact same month, the same year.
Yeah.
After listening to your podcast. And then we met up a year later and put it all together. So
now you got an incredible partnership. You're perfectly yoked together, and it's awesome.
Hey guys, as always, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Bottleneck Real Estate Virtual Assistants. These guys are fantastic. We've been using them for years in our business. They've really helped us scale. They can handle really any task related to real estate, whether it be for the investing side, real estate agents, lenders, but specifically we use them for our contract to close process, our transaction coordination, also for phone and email correspondence. We really use them for working with the insurance company, working with utility on and offs, dealing with anything in our CRM, graphic design. I mean, really anything that you can need, they work really, really well with that. And the also really big benefit that this group has is they help with onboarding and tracking for that process. So they've got folks here locally in the States that can help build out some of your systems and processes, whether it be contract to close or contract coordination, kind of define the different steps that are necessary when the virtual assistant needs to contact who on that process. And then also the folks here can kind of set you up with a tracking system so that the virtual assistants are responsible for updating the tracking forms, providing those tracking forms to you to make sure that everything is going smoothly and staying on course. Probably one of the best pieces that this group can really do for you. But hopefully you guys like them as much as we do. If you want to get in touch, It's bottleneckrealestate.com, bottleneckrealestate.com, and I think you will be very happy with them. Holy hell, guys. What a great interview with Sean Terry. Absolutely love that. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we had to break this thing up into 2 parts because it was just so much content. I didn't want everyone getting too overwhelmed. But check into the next episode, episode 2 of Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast. Sean's going to start with talking about how he finds new marketing channels, how he evaluates the problems in his business to look for the opportunities, and kind of what he does on a repetitive basis to make him just absolutely great at that piece. So check out the second episode. I think you'll like it even more than the first one. And thanks again for listening to Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast. If you got some good quality content out of that, if you think it would help anybody, please go to iTunes or SoundCloud or whoever you're listening to this on and subscribe to the podcast. Also, please give us a 5-star rating. It really helps get us out there. If you do subscribe and give us a 5-star rating, take a screenshot of it, email it over to info@robertheider.com, Robert, HEYDER.com, and register for you guys to win a free one-on-one coaching session with myself or one of our guests. They were nice enough to give up some of their time, so thank you for that. Also, please follow us on social media, Robert_Heider at Instagram, Robert_Heider at Instagram. We'll drop some really quality content there. Also, I almost forgot, if you guys want a free commercial real estate guide and commercial real estate analysis tool, just go to the website, robertheider.com, fill out that brief little form, and we'll email that over to you. It's a really, really good tool just to be able to analyze deals quickly, understand kind of what's going on, see if it's actually a deal. All right, guys, thanks. Until next one.